Hey everybody, what's up? This is Chris, and in this short video I want to introduce to you the Brackets code editor. I'm gonna show you how to install and then configure Brackets, as well as download what I'm going to call the top 6 extensions or essential extensions for use with Brackets. These extensions will make your life a lot easier, make it more efficient to work with Brackets, and maybe even make it more fun. Okay. So let's get started. On the screen up here, you can see I'm showing the Brackets website. This is brackets.io. You'll go there, see a page something like this. We're currently in version 1.13 at the time of this download. It might be different when you download it. That's okay. Go ahead and download what you have. It probably won't be that different. Click on the Download Brackets button. It's going to download whatever package you are needing for your particular operating system. I'm on Windows. Go ahead and download that, install. I'm not going to show you how to install software. I'm assuming you know how to do that. Once you download it, you're going to open it and you're going to see something like this. What I have here is a kind of a basic HTML and JavaScript app open here, just so you can see some basic code. And what we're looking at is the default theme for Brackets. I don't really like the white background. I think it's a little too bright. So the first thing I'm going to do is come up here to the View menu and go to Themes, and I prefer to use the dark theme. So it looks more like this. In addition to that, at least for these videos, I like to make my font a little bit larger so that people can see it a little easier. So I'm going from 17 to 20 pixels. And that gives us the result we see here. Alrighty. So in addition to changing the theme, we also want to add extensions. Again, I've introduced this video as the 6 essential extensions that I use in Brackets. Now, there are lots of others. Others might disagree and have others that they prefer, but these are the 6 that I've used over time that I use in a lot of the videos that you might watch here on my channel, and so I'm going to recommend that you install these. And so let's get going. We got to use the Extension Manager to do this. There's a shortcut button over on the far right side. It's called Extension Manager. You can go there. You can also go to File, Extension Manager. Either way works. I like to use the button on the right. When you first open the Extension Manager, each time you do, it takes a moment to load. It's literally going out on the internet and finding a list of current extensions that are available. And so this is pretty cool. You can get up-to-date, most recent versions of the extensions by going to the Extension Manager. The first one that we're going to install is one called Emmet. So from the Available tab on the far left, go ahead and type in E-M-M-E-T, and you'll see there's 2 available. We want this Emmet here, and you simply come over and click the Install button. The installation is successful. You close this window. When you're clicking Close, it'll bring you back to the window. Now, the one thing you might want to do whenever you install extensions is come up here to the Debug window and choose the Reload with Extensions, because your documents that are in the window might not update with the current extensions. So it's always a good idea to do that. Let's talk about a little bit about what Emmet is. I'm going to go back to the Extension Manager real quick. And now that I've installed this Emmet, we can come in here and see the More Info link. This is going to bring us to a web page. It's really helpful whenever you're installing extensions. I'm not going to do this for all of them today, but it's a good idea to go to their web page from that link in the Extension Manager and just read a little bit about it. As it says here, Emmet is a plugin for many popular text editors, which greatly improves HTML and CSS workflow. So those are the 2 languages it works in, HTML and CSS. So obviously it's for web development, and I'm going to show you right now some examples of what it does when you're working with Emmet in a browser. It's not just for Brackets. It can be installed in lots of different code editors. All right. Back to Brackets. So I've installed Emmet. Let's take a look at it. In order to best show you examples of how it works, I'm going to create a new blank document, and I'm just going to go ahead and save this right to my desktop just for ease of use, and just call it test.html. Alrighty, we have this document now, and it is an HTML document. As you see, I just saved it as. And one of the greatest aspects of Emmet that I have found is the way that you can create a basic skeleton of a basic HTML page just with 2 keystrokes, and those keystrokes are exclamation point and tab. And when you do that, you can see here all of a sudden it creates a basic HTML5 document. You've got your doc type at the top, you've got your HTML tag, which represents HTML5, etc. And this is a really, it's obviously pared down, but it's a very basic HTML page. And I love that because in order to do almost anything on the web, you got to have this basic set of tags. So we see that here. Again, that's the exclamation point and a tab, and that'll give you that. Now, once we have our basic page, again, the Emmet works great anytime you want to put a tag in there. For example, if we want to put an H1 tag, we're used to putting in our less than tags and H1 and greater than, and it go ahead and it puts in the closing tag. But it's even easier than that when you have Emmet installed. All you have to do is type H1 and hit tab, and it automatically puts in both the opening and closing tag. And you can put whatever you want in between that. This is a test page, right? We know that our content goes in between the tags. You can put in, an H2, etc. Sorry, didn't put the tab. H2 tab, and it'll fill in all of these tags for you. Inside this tag, we could put an unordered list tab as well. Now, one of the other things you can do inside of Emmet is you can even tell it to put in multiple instances of a single tag. So for example, we know inside a UL tag we often put an LI, but you can put the LI, then go times, or with the asterisk, times 5 and tab, and all of a sudden it'll put in 5 of the tags that you just told to put in. So that's pretty cool. And so let's move on down a little bit further here. Let's go in and put in another. We often use div tags, right, to divide our page up into different sections. But quite often, because there's lots of div tags on a page, you would want to give them class names. So we can put in a div with Emmet, and then we can put in a dot class name. For example, container is a common one, and then hit tab, and it automatically, because we put the dot there in front of the word container, it sets that up as a class. So it's the class with the name container. You can likewise do the same with a div and say we can give it a class name like main, but then also give it a hashtag main container, something like that. And the hashtag we know has to do with ID attributes, and so now we've given it both a class name main and an ID name main container. One other shortcut with Emmet is you can even shortcut it even more than what we've been doing, because div is used so often in so many different ways in web development, and in Bootstrap and other libraries it's used a lot. You don't even have to put the div. You can just say dot main hashtag main container, or whatever the names of your IDs and class names are. Hit tab, and you can see it just assumes you want to put in a div, and so it does that, gives it the class and ID designations. This is awesome. All right, so there's a lot more you can do with Emmet. That's a really brief overview of creating elements, HTML elements. And not only that, adding class names and ID names, and even giving yourself a basic skeleton of HTML to start a page. So there's a lot more to Emmet that you can do. If you love it, as I do, you might want to go onto their website and learn more about how it works. Alrighty, let's go back to the other document that I was using earlier. Alrighty, what we want to do is add our next extension. We've added Emmet. All the other extensions I'm going to show here, I've already actually installed them, because now that you know how to install an extension, we don't need to show you that again. I'm just going to go in and one by one enable them so that you can see what they do. So back to the extension manager. And again, next I'm going to show you the Beautify extension. This is just an awesome extension, and for formatting your code. And again, instead of installing it from scratch, because I've already installed it, I'm just going to go to the Installed tab here and find it here at the top called Beautify, and you can see it's not enabled. So I'm going to click the Enable button and then close. Okay. And once again, I might want to go debug, reload with extensions, and it'll ask me if I want to save the current documents that need to be saved. Yes, that's fine. It reloads everything that's currently in the window. And now Beautify has been enabled. So Beautify is all about formatting. And I teach my students, again, I'm a high school teacher. I teach programming classes, and I teach 2 different AP computer science classes. And all the things I'm teaching you in this video I use with my students. And I always tell my students that formatting your code, indenting properly, and those types of things are essential. And I even grade them on that. So if they don't do it properly, they lose some points. And Beautify is a great little extension that helps with that. So how does it work? Well, again, if you were to create a document and it didn't have any proper formatting, and this happens all the time with beginning programmers, they've got various parts of their page kind of all over the place like this. Formatting's not consistent. Some places they've indented, some places they haven't, etc. And just kind of looks like a mess. And you know, that drives me crazy. So if they have a page like this, if you have the Beautify extension, all you need to do is come over to the edit menu and choose Beautify. Also Control-Alt-B would be the shortcut for that. And as soon as you do that, as you can see here, everything goes back to its proper formatting in terms of indenting and white space, etc. And that's great. There's another feature here you can turn on. I already have it turned on, and that is that you can Beautify on save. So whenever you hit save, it'll automatically do that. So if I go back here to a poorly formatted file, as you can see here, and just kind of mess things up a little bit, and I go Control S on the keyboard, it's going to format everything for me. So I love Beautify. It is a great extension. The next one we want to talk about is called Indent Guides. Indenting, again, is very important in any kind of development process, and so the guides help you see how things are lined up. For example, this set of curly braces for the body selector of the CSS style here, the bottom closing curly brace is lined up exactly with the B of the body, and that helps see visually that all of this in here is inside that particular brace. And but there's this Indent Guides extension helps to show indenting and kind of see these guides a little easier. So let's go to Extension Manager. Again, we're going back. Once it loads here, we'll go back to the installed, because I've already installed Indent Guides here. You can see at the bottom, I'm just going to enable it, and then I'm going to close it, reload. All right, all of a sudden what you see popping up here, subtle, but you can see there's these lines now that move. And so all the code that is indented inside certain other elements and things there's a line that goes from the element, or in this case the selector, down from its opening down to its closing curly brace, and that indent guide is really helpful. I also show you some JavaScript that I have going on here where there's even more things indented, and you can see all the lines that line up, if statements and loops and various things, so it's really helpful. All right, let's go back here to our main HTML. The next extension that I want to add is the, look at my list here, brackets icons. Back to Extension Manager. Again, this extension has already been installed. I'm just going to enable it. If you don't have it installed, you would have to go to the Available tab, and you'd have to search for it and install it. But I already have it installed. And bracket icons right here. I'm going to enable it, close, reload. Now this might not seem like that big of a deal, but I kind of like it to have it installed. And that the brackets icons here is actually has to do with the list of files that are over on the left-hand side of brackets. And you can see that what was added with this extension is these little icons that represent different types of code. So the red less than, and greater than symbols represents an HTML document. We have the brackets that represent a script tag, etc. And so it's just nice. It's not essential, but it's kind of nice to be able to see the different types of files quickly and easily using these icons. All right, the next one that I want to use is what's called MiniMap, and it's particularly helpful when you have a file like this that is a pretty long file. So here's my JavaScript file for this particular app, and you can see, oh, there's all kinds of code. There's almost 100 lines of code, and it kind of scrolls on, and of course this isn't that long of a file. Sometimes they get much longer than that, and it's a little hard sometimes to find the area of the code that you want to work with, and so having a mini-map is helpful. How do you install it? Let's go to Extension Manager. I've already installed it, so it is found here, and down at the bottom here, MiniMap. I'm going to enable it. Close and reload with extensions. And now we see over here on the far right side of our brackets screen editor, we now see that there's a map that represents the entire file. And so I could easily scroll through it like that, or I can even just click in a section and it nicely, with a nice smooth animation, moves to that section of the code. It makes it a lot easier to move around the different parts of your long files. I like that one. That's called the MiniMap. Alrighty. So this is, those are the first 5 extensions. And the next one, the last one, has to do with debugging your code. I find it's so essential to teach students early on in the process how to debug their code and to find a good way to do that. You might have noticed in this JavaScript file I have all these red X's. And so you might be thinking, oh man, she's got all kinds of errors in her code. Well, not exactly. The debugger, or what's called lint program or lint extension that's installed by default in brackets, is called JSLint. And if I go over here, well, let me show it to you first here. If you click down here in the lower right corner, you see this little yellow exclamation point icon, and it's showing you first of all the warnings messages from JSLint. You can see it here is 13 of them. Actually, there would be more, but it stopped scanning. There were so many. And then below that, some ESLint error messages, actually. And that's what all of these X's here represent alongside on the left side of my code. But if you look at that list and you know much about the types of errors these are, they're really kind of little picky little errors that don't really matter that much. And they can be very confusing to beginning programmers. They think there's a real error, but again, these are just console.log errors or different things like that window is not defined, etc. And these things are not really important errors at all. They can be ignored just fine. And so I don't like that. It messes up this window and it makes it confusing to beginning coders. So I want to turn off the JSLint and turn on, first install and then turn on something called JSHint. And it's a much more reliable debugger especially for beginning programmers. So we're going to go back to the Extension Manager. Once the Extension Manager launches, let's go over to the Default tab on the far right. Again, these lint tools are built into brackets when it ships, and so they are already installed and they're part of the default package. We need to go here and let's search for lint, L-I-N-T, and we'll see there's 2 installed, ESLint and JSLint. We'll see that there's 2 installed, ESLint and JSLint. We're going to go ahead and disable both of them and hit close, disable extensions and reload. And as soon as it reloads, we're going to see, and we see here all of those red X's along the left hand side of our screen are gone. Now we can come down and look in this window here and see that there are still some error messages here, but again, these are really minor ones having to do with certain things not being defined, like the window, the console, and all of that. But those are all built in JavaScript functions. We know that they're defined by JavaScript, so these things are not really very, these aren't a problem at all. So we're going to close that window there, and it's removed all those red X's from our file here already. So that works really great. Of course, if we did come in here and actually create a real error in our code, for example, I'm removing that closing parentheses and resaved my document and came in here and looked in my error messages, I would see now there are a bunch of other types of errors. Again, these are real errors that are going to cause my program not to run, but it really diminishes a lot of those extra unnecessary errors that can confuse beginning coders. So I'll fix my code here and resave that, and we can see again a lot of those errors I had created go away. And it's just really helpful to have a built-in debugger of some kind that helps beginning coders especially, or really all coders, find their errors and be able to easily fix them. So that's it for the 6 extensions that I call 6 essential or top extensions that I like to add to my brackets installation. And there are others. You can explore others as well, but those I think are really helpful to have. One last thing to talk about with the setting up and configuring our brackets. One thing you can do is go to the debug window here and go down to open preferences file. When you do that, you're going to see a read-only file on the left, which can't be changed because it's read-only. And then on the right, you're going to see a list of all the current changes to the default configuration of brackets that have been added. And so all the things that I've added here today are showing up as, for example, I changed the font size, and I added the lint, and I did a variety of things, set up the MiniMap, etc. And all those things that I added and configured in certain ways are now showing up here. And so if you're ever wondering about what's being done in your configuration, you can access it that way. I'm going to close that. All right, we've now added our 6 extensions, and they're working great. One last thing we can do from our document here, our basic HTML file, an important thing to know about brackets is how do you view your files and when you're working on them. And the upper right corner is the live preview button. You click that and it launches your current application in a browser window. And this is just a simple little animated bubbles application, and we can see it's working. And the nice thing about the live preview in brackets that I really love is that there is an auto refresh. So as soon as you edit your file and then save it, it automatically refreshes in the browser. So for example, I go to this scripts, and let's just change something here really quick and simple. Instead of having blue bubbles, let's make them red. And as soon as I save this, and we won't see it because it's hidden, but as soon as I save that now and come back over here, all of a sudden it's refreshed the browser automatically, and the changes can now be seen. And maybe I can set these up half and half here in the window so we can demonstrate this a little bit better. Again, I've got it running on the left, and if I come in and make my code back, the code color here, and as soon as I hit Control S to save, it's updating automatically in the browser. You don't, in other words, have to go back to the browser and hit the refresh button in order to see the changes. You're going to see them automatically as soon as you Control S and save. Okay, so that's a really cool aspect to the brackets code editor environment. Love it. All right, I hope this has been really helpful to you to understand better how to use brackets and how to install a couple of really important extensions. I would encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos like this, and even hit the notifications bell next to the subscribe button so that you can be notified whenever I upload a new video to the channel. Hey, again, thanks for being a part of this community. I'll see you next time.